Mr. President, is a hostage deal near? Sir, is a hostage deal near? Mr. President, is a hostage deal near?
I believe so, but I'm not prepared to talk to you.
Believe so?
Yes.
That drives me crazy when he makes news on the tarmac when you can't hear him. But that was news, because there's fingers crossed right now that's the word from the president yesterday. His hopes are rising. We could soon get a deal to free some of the hostages that are still being held by Hamas in Gaza. Joining us now, Republican presidential candidate and former New York, Jersey governor, Chris Christie. It's good to have you here. You were just in Israel. What do you think of the possibility that this hostage deal swap is imminent? Is it possible? Is it going to work?
Well, look, I really hope so, Dana and Bill. When I was in Israel last weekend, I met with a number of the families whose family members have been held hostage now for over 7 weeks. And, you know, they gave me this dog tag to keep with me. It says, bring them home now. And I think that's exactly the imperative, not only for the Israeli hostages, but for the American hostages that are held there as well. There needs to be a deal made. I hope the Biden administration is working hard towards getting it done, because those folks need to stop the suffering of those innocent people who were taken hostage by the terrorist organization Hamas.
Dana has said this before, and we were just talking during the break. The leaders of Hamas are living in Qatar, and they've made a lot of money. Was there any conversation about taking them out?
Look, you know, I did not get into specific with the IDF forces that I met with, specific war plans in terms of what they intend to do. And so I don't have any information on that, Bill. But what I did learn when I was there was the level of inhumanity that those Hamas leaders and their soldiers visited on the people of Israel. I went into a kibbutz, like I said, 600 yards from the Gaza Strip. And I went into a home of a 24-year-old couple who had just recently been married. You saw some of the video right there. The young woman was killed on her couch, still blood-stained. You could smell death in that place. Her husband was killed in the doorway of their bedroom. And I counted it. There were 140 bullet holes in this small 4-room home to kill 2 people. The joy they showed in visiting this inhumanity on these innocent civilians was breathtaking. And what it tells me is that there's no alternative but for Israel to degrade Hamas's military capability to the point where they can't visit this type of threat on them again. You see me walking around there with the Speaker of the Knesset, and he said to me, how do I tell these families to come back and rebuild their homes if Hamas still has a military capability? Mm-hmm. That's exactly the right question to be asking. And for those people who want a ceasefire, listen, there was a ceasefire on October 6th. It was Hamas that broke it on October 7th.
Bernie Sanders is saying that aid will come, but there has to be some changes. This is a quote from him. The Netanyahu government, or hopefully a new Israeli government, must understand that not one penny will be coming to Israel from the U.S. unless there is a fundamental change in their military and political positions. What do you make about the political divide here in this country when it comes to aiding Israel?
I don't understand it, Dana. The fact is, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel is one of our greatest, if not our greatest ally in the world. And for someone like Senator Sanders, who they have a hard time running Congress, maybe they should not be spending their time trying to run another government's business. Maybe he should get a budget done in the United States Senate. Maybe he should get the work done there that needs to get done to secure our border. He should get that work done before he's dictating to another government what to do. The fact is, this is wartime and it's difficult. And I have confidence in the Israeli Defense Forces to be able to do the job the right way. I'm convinced from what I saw that they're doing everything they can to try to minimize the deaths of Palestinian civilians. But here's the problem. Hamas is forcing those civilians to stay in areas that are militarized because they want to use them as human shields and propaganda weapons against Israel around the world. Fact is that Israel is doing more to try to protect innocent Palestinian civilians than Hamas is.
Yeah. Well, the protests here in America, they're just growing larger, to be frank with you. And I don't think, Governor, this war's been on for, what, 6 weeks? 60 days ago, or even 45 days ago, no one in this country predicted that you would see the number of people in the streets and these college campuses protesting Israel as a country, or Grand Central Station or Penn Station on a Friday night. It just goes on. And I'm wondering, from your perspective as you travel the country, where do you think that comes from?
It comes from an underlying and deep-seated anti-Semitism that exists on college campuses and in other places all over this country. It's been there. I live in the most ethnically diverse state in America, in New Jersey. And I can tell you, when I was governor, we had a number of incidents of anti-Semitism where I sent the state police out to synagogues, and this is years ago now, around the state to make sure that those folks were protected and able to practice their faith. The fact is that anti-Semitism exists, and it's flourishing on our college campuses because of the radical professors that get hired in these college campuses who have an agenda that is anti-Semitic. And that's why I've called for the firing of the president of Harvard, the president of Penn, and the president of Cornell, who have hired these faculty, tenured them, and allowed them to spew their anti-Semitic hate to 18-year-old young people and try to teach them that that's really the way the world should be. It isn't. We need to stand up against the higher education bureaucracy in this country that is allowing this to happen and festering this on college campuses. It's wrong. And those of us in this country who have leadership positions need to be saying it. And this is one of the areas where I think President Biden has not been strong enough. There is not an equivalence right now in this country with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. There simply isn't. And you could see it from the things that are happening on college campuses. And so let's stop making fake moral equivalences, and let's talk about what the truth is on the ground. And that is that anti-Semitism is being given an opportunity to be flourishing in this country right now, and leaders need to stop it.
Governor Chris Christie, thank you. And I know you're up in New Hampshire today campaigning. We didn't talk a lot about politics, but we talked about an important issue, Israel and its survival. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.